Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel, everyone. And hello, Maverick family. There's a great word to start with. Appropriate tonight. Because I've been feeling discouraged. As I have been surfing the net. Oh, there's an old term. Do people even speak that way anymore? As I've been surfing the net over the past day since last night's broadcast to research and prepare for tonight, I have become increasingly discouraged because I just keep running into people straight up lying. One lie after another. Part of it is because of the nature of the stories that we have been covering here. As a result, I'm getting stories fed to me by the social media algorithms, and some of the stories we've been covering of late have been dominated by a network of influencers who have been working to just spin up a narrative. Truth be damned, they're lying their asses off. The thing is, I think a lot of people know that they're being lied to, but they prefer it. They want it. And that's why it's so discouraging. I mean, it's just about to the point where it's like, what's the point? But we soldier on. We'll do that tonight. Canada's under attack. I've been saying for a few years that Canada is, the phrase I began to use initially was Canada is in play. I could tell there was a country out there, or maybe more than one, that had Canada in its sights. I think that's true tonight. I think there is more than one country that is targeting Canada. Maybe not entirely to, annex us. Certainly, I think that is Donald Trump's goal. And that is having a major impact on all the stories that we're likely to cover here tonight on our country, on what's going on in people's minds. But also, China, they're focused on us. Trade, competition with the U.S. And Canada is kind of caught in the middle as a significant economic power, but not a major military power. And so we work with other countries, but because we are physically connected geographically to the world's most powerful military power, a superpower. We have to be careful who we hang out with, who we associate with. There's no freedom of association for Canada. That saddens me. The divisions are deep and getting deeper. And because the divisions are so deep and emotions are running high and emotions are being exploited by people with political agendas, truth is going straight out the window. Well, one of the big stories tonight, two really, I think, significant stories. One obviously very significant for Canada, as Mark Carney today announced in the newest round of national projects to build Canada for the future. I haven't even checked for the response from political opponents and pro 51st staters and separatists, because I think it's pretty predictable. It won't matter what he says. They'll kick him in the teeth and in the groin, and they'll lie. And the liberals will probably lie right back about some things. But man, I'll tell you, there's a whole lot of lying going on among people that I previously trusted. I guess that's why I'm so darn discouraged. Because it makes me feel like, where's the hope, right? We got lied to so much during the pandemic and locked down, and you put your faith, your trust in people in times like that. And then they betray you with lies, and then more people turn against you or attack me, because they prefer the lie. And I know that a lot of them know that they're being lied to, but they want the lie, the lies. What is truth? What is a country? Is Canada a real country? I've heard people lying about that, lying their asses off. Again, as they flood the zone with BS. Because there are a lot of people out there who've just been converted or indoctrinated. They hate their own country now. I understand, but I don't agree. And what I've come to realize is, because Canada doesn't have freedom of association, it makes you aware that Canada has to be very careful what it says, who it trades with, what countries it aligns with. You made one wrong move. Tariffs on you. Another 10%. How dare you tell the truth about Ronald Reagan? Lest you be accused of using artificial intelligence to create a commercial and be accused of taking Reagan out of context and lying about his views on trade and tariffs? Who's lying? It wasn't Doug Ford. It wasn't Mark Carney. It wasn't Canada. But I know that because most people don't know their history, and a lot of people, if they were even paying attention at all when Reagan was president, if they're still alive today, they probably don't really remember. And a lot of people too young to know. So it's easy to lie to them. And that's just one example. That's nothing compared to the crap I've been hearing online over the past 24 hours. The other big story related to all of that, Elon Musk changing the name of, what is it, Grokopedia? He's changing it to Encyclopedia Galactica. And in tonight's thumbnail, I wrote, Illiterate Future is the title. It's not clickbait. It probably won't generate much in the way of clicks at all. But it just seemed very appropriate, so I used it. That's my headline tonight, Illiterate Future. And I'll explain why. Elon Musk is paving the way to a dumbed down world, even though he's paving the way to a smarter future. I know. That doesn't make any sense at all, does it? We'll get into it on the other side. Stay with me.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom. Maverick News isn't just a news outlet, it's a community of truth seekers. Your donation at freedomreporters.com fuels our mission to report the stories that mainstream media won't touch. Thank you, Maverick family.
Okay, let's start with the nation-building story. Mark Carney today announcing in Terrace, British Columbia, that 6 new major projects, plus a vast critical minerals corridor, have been referred to the Federal Major Projects Office, or MPO. The initiatives represent over $56 billion in investment and are expected to support 68,000 jobs. Carney is calling each project transformational, but says their collective impact will amplify national strategies to boost Canada's competitiveness, exports, and clean energy future. The new referrals include the North Coast Transmission Line in northwestern BC, set to power new mines and export facilities. The Canada Infrastructure Bank is loaning BC Hydro $139.5 million to support it. There's also this the second largest liquefied natural gas facility on Pierce Island, BC. Canada's Nickel Crawford project in Timmins, Ontario, producing nickel for batteries and green steel. Nouveau Monde Graphite's Matawini mine in Saint Michel des Saints, Quebec, an open pit operation supplying graphite for battery chains and defense. Northcliffe Resources, Sisson Mine in Sissonbrook, New Brunswick, extracting tungsten for steel, defense, and industry. And there's a hydro project in Nunavut that could become the territory's first fully Inuit-owned hydro facility, delivering cleaner power to the capital. And with that, I know that a lot of people initially, because of these land claims and the issues surrounding property rights, touchy issue right now. And here's Carney today doing what all the politicians have been doing for how many years has this been going on now? The land acknowledgements. That's how today's news conference started. And here's Mark Carney talking about his second round of nation building projects.
Well, by Minister Robertson, and to be joined by the CEO of the Major Projects
I
Office,
skipped over the land
Dawn
acknowledgement.
Farrell. I'd like to acknowledge the representatives of the Gitxaalath First Nation, the Kitsukalam First Nations, and recognize that we are here on the traditional territory of the Tsimshian people.
No, I did cue it up properly.
I'd like to acknowledge other representatives of
Thanks.
other First Nations communities who've gathered with us today and whom we honor. The reason for this meeting is to announce the second group, the second tranche of major projects that will be referred to what's known as the Major Projects Office. Let me talk a bit about those projects.
Okay, before he does that, I just want to point something out. The people on the U.S. side and those who support the 51st state stuff, this is actually key. These land acknowledgements, it's a key component of the political fight that is unfolding and the threat to Canada and the way that the 51st staters are saying that Canada is not a real country. You see, because they are saying or suggesting or accusing Canada of not being a real country because we haven't conquered First Nations. And so, therefore, that's one of the components that they're using to attack the credibility and even the authenticity of Canada as a country, saying you're not a real country because you haven't conquered First Nations. You don't have any sovereignty. Your land doesn't belong to you. But if you go back and you look at your history and the way the country was set up and the vision, for instance, that Sir John A. Macdonald had for Canada was that we didn't want to build a country based on conquering. We've always been a country of compromise and, cooperation. And that's why we've always existed since 1867 as a country that has nations within a nation, that there are First Nations, but then Canada is the nation state. And it's a complex, this Canada must have, if not the most complex political setup, and maybe even the most complex constitution, even though it probably isn't the thickest. I keep it right here all the time. It has to be one of the most complex in the world, if not the most complex. But just because we're not like the United States and because our history with First Nations peoples is not exactly the same as they have on the U.S. side, because we, if you go back and look at even like the War of 1812 and the way that we interacted with First Nations and the way, one of the main reasons we have the kind of country we have and the nations within a nation organization for our country is because we had First Nations peoples supporting us on this side against attack from the United States. And so we've honored or tried to, not very effectively at times, granted, the history that surrounded that and the contributions that First Nations have made to the actual creation of Canada as a nation state. But on the U.S. side, they see that as one of the things that gives Canada an Achilles heel of vulnerability. And they're driving, painful wedges in there to divide this country and undermine trust and even belief in Canada as an actual nation. But the reason I bring it up is because Carney has been saying all along here that he wants to make sure these projects are rolled out and that all of this is done in the right way. And he reiterated that today. And it is important because in order to get things done in Canada, it is very, very difficult because you have, if you want to build a pipeline, you have to take all of the considerations of all the stakeholders into account. First Nations peoples, provinces, municipalities, private landowners. If your pipeline is going across a farm, yes, farmers do have land rights. You as a property owner, you do have rights. Those rights are being questioned right now because of these First Nations land claims and these land acknowledgements, which I think are problematic from a legal perspective. But Carney is trying to approach all of this this phase of nation building in a way that still honors and respects our Constitution, our history, honors and respects the nations within a nation status of First Nations communities, the jurisdictions and the areas of sovereignty that belong to provinces. It becomes this incredibly complex system that you have to navigate your way through just to get anything done in the country. But the reason it's so complex is because we've always been a country that prefers conciliation, concession, cooperation rather than conquest. Instead of just taking land or taking things from First Nations peoples, we negotiate. It's become more pronounced, certainly in the last decade, with the Liberals. Like it or not, that's the approach that is being taken. The alternative, it could get bloody. And on the other side, if you get too much push from the First Nations and there isn't real cooperation there, things could turn very sour. It's a delicate balance. But I'll tell you, I prefer cooperation over bloodshed any day of the week. People, I take my hat off to anybody, whether it's Polyev or Carney or whomever might be in that position. What a tough job. There's no way you can keep everybody happy. And good luck getting a pipeline built or extending a railway or building new infrastructure, energy infrastructure. You have all of these issues that you have to deal with. Environmental impact issues. Everybody has their hand out. They want to pay off. There's corruption in First Nations and the Canadian government and the provinces. Everybody wants a payoff. Then you have to deal with all the big corporations. Everybody wants a piece of the pie. They all want a profit. And when they think they've got you by the short and curlies, they squeeze you harder. I don't know. This is why I've been saying that the real solution, and this goes back to all of this sovereignty talk in Alberta, where people out in Alberta think that the solution to getting pipelines built is for Alberta to have more sovereignty. No, not true. And for all the provinces to have more sovereignty, it's not going to help you. It should actually be the other way. You need a federal government with more power, not less, because you need a federal government that has the tools at its disposal to just say, that's it, we're building a pipeline. Whether Ontario likes it or not, or whether Quebec likes it or not, this pipeline's going through because the whole country needs it. Alberta needs it, but Canada needs it just as much. And so it's coming through. But if you give more power to Alberta and you erode or dilute the power of the federal government, it makes it more and more difficult to get your pipeline built east to west. But here's the other kicker. You know, all that oil that flows south to the US right now and through the US, you know, all the oil and energy that the United States buys from Canada, they get it at a discount. And you think you're going to get a better deal from the US if you say nix to Canada? Why do you think these pipelines are so hard to build east to west? It's just I'm going off on a tangent here, but that's okay, because here's a little bit of a wake-up call for you. Big oil companies with an interest in Canada as a source of energy, a place to invest. You think it's in their best interest for Alberta to be able to build pipelines across Canada, east to west, to West Coast and the East Coast? No. You think they're not involved in Canadian politics, influencing things that go on up here? And then if you're not thinking in those terms, then you just don't know how it works. Right now, there's all kinds of U.S. influence in Canadian politics, especially in Alberta. Well, hell, we saw the offer for $500 million, I think it was. Here, let me find it for you. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but I wasn't even sure where tonight's program was going to go. I'm just so discouraged with all the frickin' lying that it just, what am I going to talk? I don't even want to come on tonight. It's just a flood of lies. Here it is here. I've got it. Dennis Modry, Alberta separatism. This is audio of Dennis Modry, Alberta Prosperity Project, talking about a meeting with U.S. officials where a $500 million loan possibly was discussed to support Alberta independence, breaking up Canada. Let's go and listen, shall we? Sure, let's do it. I've run this before, but most people don't pay attention. It's all new, second time around, for a good portion of the people, and it's worth hearing. And some of you will applaud because you'd like Canada destroyed. Here we go.
So there's a couple of things I'd like to share with you that I didn't already. One of them was our trip to Washington on April the 22nd, when Jeff Rath and I met with senior U.S. administrative officials, just a couple of steps away from the president himself. When we walked into the conference room, the first comment, just as we were sitting down, was, "We recognize and support Alberta becoming a sovereign nation." That was the first comment. And so there's a couple of things I'd like to share with you that I didn't already. One of them was our trip to Washington on April the 22nd, when Jeff Rath and I met with senior U.S. administrative officials, just a couple of steps away from the president himself. When we walked into the
repetitive here.
Into the conference room, the first comment, just as we were sitting down, was, "We recognize and support Alberta becoming a sovereign nation."
Of course you do.
That was the first comment. And
right.
And that right now, to your point, Peter, right now, Alberta 51 isn't on the table. But it could be at some point in the future. You're absolutely correct. Other things that were sort of interesting that we talked about was a $500 million transition loan that we would only draw down as necessary as we work with the U.S. to transition from a province to a country. And the second thing was with respect to the U.S. currency, because we know what will happen to the U.S. dollar when Alberta meets Canada. The dollar will sink even more than it is now. Now, in the circumstances of getting out of Canada, we get out from all federal regulation and taxation. So that means the purchase of goods and services becomes less as well. Ostensibly, your Canadian dollar, which is worth less, will still be able to buy because the price points will be lower. But the request that we made is for the U.S. to agree to take every Alberta citizen's Canadian dollar and have the bank exchange it for one U.S. dollar. So that's another thing. We'll find it.
Enough. Do you think it's appropriate, proper for a foreign government to back up separatists in Canada who are working to break up the country? Do you think it's appropriate? How would you feel, or how would you view China giving a $500 million slush fund to the Alberta Prosperity Project to pivot away from America, to separate from Canada so that they could supply China with oil? Would that be appropriate? Right now, I think if you think about it in those terms, most people would lose their freaking minds. China, $500 million slush fund, fentanyl, invade, get the U.S. up here to take over Canada. Well, we're getting that anyway. But why is it okay for the Trump administration, and I don't blame all of America for that, but the Trump administration, people within it, to offer up $500 million in a slush fund to the separatists out in Alberta to break up Canada? You draw down as you need to. And here's the thing about the Canadian dollar. The only reason the Canadian dollar is worth less than the US dollar is because the Bank of Canada sets its interest rates at a level that purposely reduces the value. It devalues the Canadian dollar vis-a-vis or in relation to the US dollar to make our products more attractive for purchase. It makes our resources more affordable to the United States. So we effectively work for less so we can export our resources to the United States, because we are not generally and have not been historically a country that adds value by refining our own resources, our own oil or other resources. We have generally through history just mined our minerals and shipped them off, exported them to other countries where they are then processed and value is added. And that is very much the case with the United States, where we sell our oil at a discount. And the reason they sell it at a discount out of Alberta to the United States is because there's so much trouble getting the pipelines built east to west that the oil flows south to the US because there's no other place to send it. And then the US takes that energy that they buy at a discount and then they resell a lot of it themselves and make money from it, either as crude or as refined product. You think you're going to get a better deal when you just become part of the United States? And then they come up and the big corporations, the big oil companies have you by the short and curlies, and they just set up shop and you don't have a Canadian government at all. in the mix out in Alberta, then it's just you and the White House, man. Well, I guess, you'll be treated like any other state, I guess, at that point, if you become a state. But if you're your own sovereign nation, you have a fraction of the population of even some large U.S. cities. Look at the size of the Alberta population compared to like Los Angeles, New York. New York itself has almost half the population of all of Canada. You think you're going to have any leverage? Do you think they have any respect for you now? They don't give a crap about you. They treat you like crap now, and you're like, give me more. Why are they saying give me more? $500 million slush fund. Who's going to pocket some of that? Maybe some of the people spearheading the separatist movement. How do you take over a country if you're a superpower and you don't really want to fire any shots? Information warfare, pay people off, pump money into organizations that are disruptive to the country you're targeting, pump money into even fake First Nations organizations, block rail lines, cause a commotion, protests, do it all on the QT. So it's not really obvious. Launder the money. Only this, now it's just like it's right out in the open. We'll give you 500 mil. That's pretty cheap. That's a bargain. Buy a province for 500 mil. And then end up on the other side with one of the biggest oil reserves in the entire freaking world. I'd hold out for a better deal. 500 million is a little on the low side, guys. If you're going to F Canada, don't do it on the cheap. I'd ask for more. Just saying.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
I kind of forgot all about the Prime Minister. Let's see what the other side says.
And what they're here for. They're here to reinforce our nation. They are part of nation-building strategies to transform our economies, but to build all nations, to build Canada and to build First Nations. They are strategies that will make our country more independent, more inclusive, more sustainable, and yes, more prosperous. Parce que nous sommes dans une situation où le monde évolue rapidement. Les changements technologiques s'accélèrent. La transition axée sur l'énergie verte gagne rapidement de terrain et transforme la demande mondiale en ressources. Et les États-Unis ont fondamentalement changé leur approche au commerce, ce qui menace des emplois et plonge les entreprises canadiennes dans un climat d'incertitude. We're in a situation because of all these changes in the world that many of our historic strengths, based on close ties with the United States, have become our vulnerabilities. We just released a budget last week. And in that budget, we estimate that the U.S. tariffs and the associated uncertainty that they're causing will cost the Canadian people about 1.8% of our GDP. Now, let me translate that into real numbers. That's about $50 billion lost from our economy. It's the equivalent of $1,300 for every woman, man, and child in this country. That's because the world, U.S., is changing rapidly. And so we must change our strategy dramatically. And we're doing that by drawing on our legacy as builders, a legacy forged for long by the people of British Columbia. Throughout our history, Canadians have built major projects that define our landscape and underwrite our prosperity. Projects like the railway that united the Maritimes around the time of Confederation. Projects like the Canadian Pacific Railway that helped bring British Columbia into Confederation. The Trans-Canada Highway that linked our nation. The St. Lawrence Seaway that has opened up new markets in the East for over $1 trillion of cargo and counting. We used to build in this country, and we are building our nation again. One of the first things that Canada's new government did was to pass something called the Building Canada Act. That was back in June. And this law changes the government's approach to building major projects from why to how. Those projects are projects that strengthen Canada's autonomy, our independence, strengthen our resilience, strengthen our security. They're projects that provide major economic benefits to Canadians, ones that have a high likelihood of success. Crucially, they are projects that advance the interests of Indigenous peoples. And they have to be projects that contribute to sustainable, clean growth. And the Major Projects Office is helping to build Canada smarter and quicker, fast-tracking infrastructure that we need to unlock our country's immense resources and potential. And in this way, we'll build our communities, grow new businesses, and create tens of thousands of new careers in sustainable industries. Back in September, in Edmonton, we referred projects that represent more than $60 billion in investment. And today, we're going to announce some projects that will double that impact. The budget that I referenced a moment ago, the budget of last week, reinforces our mission to build Canada strong. It's our plan so that Canadians take full control of our future. It's a plan to move from over-reliance on one trading partner, the United States, to resilience, to global shocks. It's a plan to replace uncertainty with prosperity. Nous prenons notre avenir en main en bâtissant une seule économie canadienne qui sera propulsée par de nouvelles infrastructures afin de relier nos régions, de diversifier nos marchés, de ramener les logements à des coûts abordables et de protéger nos communautés.
But Carney,
au cours des 5 prochaines années, nous allons réaliser 1 000 milliards de dollars en investissement. À lui seul, le total de cet investissement suffira à augmenter notre PIB de plus de 3,5%, soit 3 500 dollars par chaque travailleur canadien. In other words, these projects that we're catalyzing, $1 trillion of investment in total over the next 5 years. That's $3,500 for every Canadian worker, twice what the Americans are taking away. Each of the projects that we're referring to the Major Projects Office today, in and of itself, is transformational. But the bigger point is that their impacts will be amplified by being part of bigger national strategies to boost Canada's competitiveness, including to realize our country's full potential as an energy superpower, by creating new trade and economic corridors that diversify our economy, projects that help build Canada's leadership in critical minerals to increase our independence, and also projects that we won't discuss today, but projects that establish our data sovereignty so Canadians can be served safely and securely online. Now, Canada, let me start with our position as an energy superpower. We're starting to realize our full potential in both conventional, i.e. oil and gas, and clean energies. LNG is an essential fuel for the energy transition. LNG can help Canada build new trading relationships, especially in fast-growing markets in Asia. By 2040, it's estimated the global LNG demand will rise by 60%, and Canada will be ready. We're home to the world's fourth largest reserves of natural gas, and we have the potential to supply up to 100 million tons annually of new LNG exports to Asia. But that will require major investment across a wide range of infrastructure. And to encourage that investment, the budget provides new tax incentives to encourage the world's lowest carbon, I'll repeat, the world's lowest carbon LNG facilities. And the budget also expands the Canadian Infrastructure Bank's ability to support projects like Xylism's LNG. Xylism comprises a new gas pipeline, a new electricity transmission line, and a new floating LNG export facility. Led by the Nisga'a Nation under President Ava Clayton, Xylism's will become Canada's second largest LNG facility with a capacity to export 12 million tons of LNG every year to new markets. It'll also be one of the world's cleanest LNG operations, with emissions an incredible 94% below the global average, and with the potential to reach net zero by the end of this decade, all while creating thousands of skilled careers and $4 billion contributions annually to our GDP. The federal government has been working closely with the province of British Columbia in the development of this project, most notably through a one project, one review environmental assessment process and associated consultations led by the province. In addition to consulting on the financing of Xylism, the Major Project Office will also help coordinate timely approvals of all three elements of the project and the related transmission infrastructure that I'll discuss in a moment. Now, more broadly, taking a step back from LNG, core to becoming an energy superpower will be to fully capitalize on Canada's advantage in clean energy by substantially expanding our clean electricity grid. Over 80% of the electric power we produce in the country, it's higher obviously in British Columbia, but in the country as a whole, is clean. The point is, clean electrification is the path. It's the only path to building a sustainable, prosperous economy. D'ici 2050, nos besoins en électricité pourraient tripler dû à la croissance économique et à l'augmentation de la demande pour les transports propres, aux processus industriels verts et aux centres de données. Et pour répondre à cette demande, nous aurons besoin davantage de capacités hydroélectriques, solaires, éoliennes et nucléaires. Et nous aurons besoin de nouvelles interconnexions entre les systèmes provinciaux
Carney
pour
has
créer
said, though, that
une
even though no
réseau
deal yet,
énergétique canadien
pipeline
efficace,
will be
robuste
built.
et durable.
Maybe.
We can unlock enormous economic opportunities by connecting and creating a sustainable grid, including right here in northern British Columbia. So our government is launching a transformational strategy to develop that clean energy, including through new investment tax credits for clean electricity, through something we just introduced in the budget called the Productivity Super Deduction, which provides for immediate expensing of clean electricity generation and conservation equipment. The Canadian Infrastructure Bank plans to invest $10 billion in clean power projects, and there will be federal support for provincial transmission links. We also see that nuclear power will play an important role in scaling clean generation. And the Minister of Natural Resources will lead our new nuclear strategy, working with the provinces, including the Government of Ontario, to deploy small modular reactors and tens of gigawatts of new utility-scale nuclear capacity. Canada, of course you know this in BC, Canada has a long tradition of using hydropower to unlock economic activity. That's true here, it's true in Quebec with Hydro-Quebec, it's true even in my home province of Alberta with the Brazeau Dam, which was the start of our industrial development. In that spirit, today we're referring the Iqaluit Nuqiqsut hydro project to the Major Projects Office. This is a breakthrough. This is a breakthrough for Arctic sovereignty and sustainability. It will be a 100% Inuit-owned hydro energy project. It will save $1.9 billion in diesel costs over the next 50 years while providing affordable, reliable, emissions-free power in the Arctic. Now that's elements of the energy superpower strategy. The second strategy is to develop new trade and economic corridors that help us diversify our markets and build our independence. And this is the potential of the Northwest Critical Conservation Corridor that we're also referring today to the Major Projects Office. The Northwest Corridor has extraordinary potential to unlock critical minerals development, clean power transmission, all under Indigenous leadership. We're talking tens of billions of dollars of investments, and in parallel, creating a new conservation area the size of Greece. The corridor involves building new transmission lines, upgrading highways, installing fiber and cell towers, and investing in communities, ports, and railways. By doing so, we'll strengthen our position as a global leader in clean energy and a leader in critical minerals. Now, what's crucial for this is the North Coast transmission line, one of the reasons we're here at BC Hydro. It's required to unlock this potential. And to help get it going, the Canada Infrastructure Bank is today announcing a loan of $140 million to BC Hydro. The North Coast transmission line will enable transformative industrial projects, including silicium, LNG, as well as multiple critical minerals developments in the Golden Triangle. The transmission line alone has the potential to create $10 billion in new economic activity in this area, while reducing emissions by up to 3 million tons annually. But more broadly, the Northwest Transmission Line will anchor clean energy industrial corridor for generations. And it has the potential to be connected with the Yukon through the Yukon-BC Grid Connect that will increase the Yukon's energy security and affordability, as well as there's a potential for an interconnect with Alberta to optimize reliability and sustainability in that province. Now, with respect to critical minerals, by 2050, global demand for those minerals is expected to increase fivefold, 5 times. The problem is, at present, the supply of those resources is highly concentrated in one country, and it's very risky. What the world wants is Canada to be the reliable supplier of critical minerals as the world moves to building a more sustainable economy. We're already amongst the top 5 global producers for 10 different critical minerals, and we hold rich geological endowment of all 34. But unlocking these resources through projects in the Ring of Fire in Ontario, La Fosse de Labrador in Quebec and Labrador, and right here, or almost right here, in the Golden Triangle in northern BC, this will attract hundreds of billions of dollars in new investment and create thousands of high-paying, not just jobs, careers, thousands of high-paying careers for miners, carpenters, engineers, and beyond across this country. The federal government is committed that these opportunities are realized in full partnership, including with equity ownership with First Nations communities. The Ring of Fire alone, to give an example, in Ontario, has the potential to add over $22 billion to Canada's GDP over 30 years, while advancing growth in partnership with local Indigenous communities. So we put together a critical minerals strategy that will encourage exploration, accelerate project development, support essential infrastructure from the first mile to the mines and the processing facilities to new trade corridors and ports that open up global markets. Our strategy will support clean power development, as we see here, while providing greater price certainty and competitive financing to the developers to encourage the long-term investments that we need and the world needs. La semaine passée, le ministre des Ressources naturelles a annoncé 26 nouveaux investissements, partenariats et mesures visant à mettre en œuvre des projets de minéraux critiques pour que de 6 milliards de dollars.
Oh, thank you.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
My microphone was muted. Thank you, Linda, for calling me to tell me. I appreciate that. Where was I? Just back to my point at the beginning of the broadcast where I said Canada is not free to associate with any other country that it wants. Trump using tariffs as a weapon against not just Canada, but all of the U.S. allies to get what he wants, whether it's economic or non-economic, whatever, right? It's not cool. The U.S. bleeding jobs. You want to join the U.S.? It's a nation in decline. $38 trillion in debt. They want Alberta. They want Canada. Trump wants Canada and Alberta to pay off their debt. That's what that's about. He wants Venezuela too. I think, pretty sure he wants everything. But that aside, as Canada faces these new geopolitical realities and this and now is facing this new relationship with the United States that is not going to be, situation normal, is going to be just all effed up. So what are we going to do? Well, we're not free to just pivot to China. We are pivoting to China, but we have to do it quietly. We want to open up more trade with all these different countries. Anybody that wants to trade, we're open for business. That's the message, but you can't say it out loud because look at this. Oops, that's not the right one that I wanted to show you. Let me bring it up over here. Oh yeah, this one here. Anita Anand talking about talks with China, bringing more tourists here. Of course, we want more trade. And China wants to do more trade with us. And they've said, their ambassador, very diplomatic and very nice, very friendly, was on CTV a couple of weeks ago saying, yeah, well, we want to do more trade with you. If whatever the United States won't buy, we'll buy in terms of, energy, minerals, whatever. We want to increase it all. But look at this post. This is why we can't, at least not just straight up. Let me see. This is SOS Canada. I guess this is another Facebook channel where, Canada's on its deathbed. Anita Anand says Canadians should expect more Chinese tourists to come here to build our economy and grow our communities. Is this the Liberal plan? Sabotage our relationship with the US and get into bed with China? How are Canadians okay with this? This is insane. Dude, or dudette, whomever you are, what the hell are we supposed to do? Bend the knee. Just become the 51st state, Rick. I don't think so, dude, or dudette. Anyway, here's what Anand said about it.
The work that we've been doing to recalibrate the Canada-China relationship has been ongoing for some weeks. I obviously was building on the Prime Minister's conversation in New York. So there has been work over the last number of months and weeks to recalibrate the relationship. And that work is ongoing.
For Canadians, why this matters, though, it might not be a term they recognize, approved destination status, but like in the very near future even, like what are the stakes? What's the dollar value, the potential of this for the economy?
This means that more and more numbers of tourists from China will be here in our country and building the domestic economy across provinces and towns and cities in this amazing, beautiful country of ours. And so it is good news, but we have more work to do on the relationship, and I look forward to doing that with the Prime Minister.
Okay. Shouldn't we be allowed to do that? Shouldn't we be allowed to trade with any country we choose to as a sovereign nation? So it's okay for people in the Trump administration to meet with separatists and then say, well, that would be great if you gave us a $500 million US slush fund to help fund our efforts to break apart the country. That's okay as we move toward a referendum on Alberta separation. But we're not even not supposed to trade with China at all. Can't have tourists come here, anything to do it. Like, I'm not a communist, and I'm not thrilled about China having a communist government. I'll tell you this, in many respects, I can tell you from personal experience, China is a more capitalistic country than the United States. China, in many respects, is more free market than the United States. China is a mercantilist country, but they've embraced capitalism as the engine that drives their economy, while at the same time realizing that they can extract the profit from that as a nation and then inject it into their social infrastructure, their social programs, or whatever they want to do, their military. And they are building their military at an unprecedented rate. It's been the fastest buildup militarily in human history. That's why the United States is so threatened, because the Chinese economy now is larger than the US, because their military is probably close to being on par, very close. A peer, not Russia, China. The United States sees that as a major threat. Can't have that sitting on the US doorstep, can you? We can't become like a proxy state of China. So we have to be very careful what we do. Yeah, we want to do business with everybody, but we are restricted in what we are allowed to do because we live right next door to Godzilla. It's a political reality. That is political realism. But there's no justification, and I'm editorializing, but I don't give a damn. I'm telling you, so that you know, so that I'm being transparent. I don't give a damn. There's no justification for the Trump administration to be coughing up $500,000 to a bunch of separatists so that they can work toward breaking up the country. They got no business in there. They got no business out in BC at that ostrich farm. And I am discouraged because I've seen people who I previously had a lot more respect for, a whole lot less tonight. People going online, because right now it's a full court press, anti-Canadian rhetoric. Save our ostriches. The rhetoric continues. And the lies, the ostrich BS, off the charts. Listening earlier today, I had to turn it off. I just about upchucked. A claim or speculation that the marksmen were chopping off the heads of the ostriches because they wanted to take trophies. Bullshit. That farm was in financial trouble. I'm going to just lay it on the line. Having those birds called, probably one of the best things that could have happened to the farm. That's me speculating. Why? You have over 300 martyred birds. Katie Pasitny has said that it is now ground zero out there for political change in Canada. They're going to get funding. They've already raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hundreds of thousands, while claiming that they've lost everything. They don't need compensation for their birds from the federal government. You compensated them for the birds if you donated to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's still rolling in because they have you jacked up emotionally, not thinking straight at all, not really looking at valid arguments, just at bullshit. Those marksmen were not taking trophies by chopping off the heads of the birds. They didn't need to wear the marshmallow suits to do their jobs, because those descriptions of what's been going on out there from these bullshit artists are just that, bullshit. The truth is, the marksman didn't need to wear PPE in the way that the people doing the close contact cleanup had to afterward, because they didn't come into contact with the birds. They brought in marksmen because it was a last resort. The farm owners could have been involved in choosing the method of executing the cull, but they chose not to. They pushed and pushed and pushed and resisted and pushed and resisted to get it to that point. And they were not allowed to be involved because they hadn't cooperated at any point from last December right through to even today. And those ostriches are dangerous. They're very powerful. They can run very, very fast. They have talons. They can kill a human being or seriously injure someone. And so rather than have CFIA contractors running around in a field trying to corral ostriches or put a leash on one and drag it in over here and then sing it a song, a lullaby, and then put it to sleep with an injected euthanasia or whatever. They did it by bringing in marksmen so that the marksman could stand back, not come into contact with the birds, and from a distance, cull the herd. But they chopped the heads off, we're told. No, they blew their heads off. Yeah, it's a graphic thing. You don't want to hear that, right? Oh, that's awful. That's inhumane. No, it's not. In fact, it's the fastest, quickest way to kill the animal. They never felt a thing. That's why some of those birds don't have heads. They shot him in the head. Bird never felt a thing. And that's the harsh truth. Didn't have to be that way. But the farm owners made sure that it was that way. They guaranteed it because they refused to cooperate and left the government in the end with no choice. That's also harsh truth. That's not me being heartless. That's me just telling you the way it is. Because milk doesn't come from the supermarket. Your Big Mac doesn't come from a Star Trek style food synthesizer. It comes from a farm. From an actual animal that was once alive and was sent to an abattoir and was killed. And then butchered and turned into a McBurger. You just don't want to think about it. But those live streamers, those influencers made damn sure that you're not only thinking about it, that you're enraged. In fact, I'm seeing posts online from some of these influencers using exactly those words. Be outraged was one of the posts. Be outraged. And you are. Why would they want you outraged? Because it ain't about the damn birds. It's about making you hate your country. They weren't taking trophies because there wasn't anything left to take. Oh, and those cops spreading the hay around, I don't know for sure. But as for the live streamers who've been telling you that the RCMP has been enlisted to shovel shit, no, they were spreading hay. And no, they weren't wearing PPE, but there are reasons for that too, that they're not sharing with you. It's because not all the hay would have been infected. Not all of the hay, which was piled sky high, would have been exposed to blood spatter or any of those kinds of possible infectious agents or the virus. And the other little piece of information that is sort of obscured or distorted is that you have to understand too, and people do not. It's bird flu, and the risk to humans is minimal. There have only been a few cases of bird flu spreading to humans. It's not about bird to human risk primarily. It's about having that virus spread to other farms. So if a person doesn't wear PPE, the risk to the human, the CFIA was following their own protocols, their own rules out there. But the live streamers taking video, making claims, saying things just to get you upset, not really stating facts and not checking on information, just speculating or just outright saying stuff and making things up. You don't have to listen to me. There's a whole tsunami of bullshit out there tonight. Go believe what you want. The harsh truth is right here. I'm tired of the story, but what am I supposed to do? It's like a tidal wave of crap. And I'm just standing against it because I know that the only way we're going to survive as a country, the only way we can get to a better place as a community is through truth. And I'm dedicated to it. And I'm not going to participate in that. Oh, and I've been offered. If you played your cards right, Rick, you could really build your channel. Oh, I know. No thanks. Because I've seen them come and I've seen them go, and integrity is everything. I'm not participating. You can if you want to. You want to live the lie? And I'm not defending the CFIA policies. That's a whole debate that you can have. Is the Stamping Out policy effective? Should it remain in place? All of those things, those are valid areas of discussion, and you can have those discussions, but it's only valuable if you're having like an open, honest discussion, dealing with factual information and exchanging ideas, not having two sides lie to each other or just amplify a narrative for a political agenda. That doesn't help. And it doesn't help when it just gets people upset, divides people, pits people against each other. Doesn't help when I've got Dr. Pellick on and he's telling me that you can just go buy the antigens that they were injecting into the birds at your local pharmacy and that you don't need any permits to run an open air biolab. Well, I'm still, trying to get the antigens to inject into my animals that I'm going to have in my open air biolab that I'm setting up in my backyard where I don't need any permits. Because I tried to get the antigens and you can't do it because it's a lie. Lots of lying going on. And it's all designed to F our country. Watched another live stream, and I don't know if I'm going to show it to you. Not tonight, but another person, a lawyer, talking on another live stream about how Canada, the Constitution is a bunch of crap, and that our king is the head of the military, and the king basically dictates what our laws are. It's all bullshit. It's not all this. It's sort of sovereign citizen-ish kind of rhetoric that's being used repeatedly. It ties into all of this stuff, the trade and the ostrich farm. It's just another shot fired in order to, try and kill the country. And they keep repeating this lie. The king doesn't make the damn laws for Canada. Yeah, it gets royal assent, and you have the Privy Council, and that's not some shadowy, dark, conspiratorial thing. It's an advisory body that makes sure that all the legislation is written correctly, and there are some emergency powers that relate to cabinet members. It's not what these people are telling you. The king doesn't make the laws. In fact, and the king is not a dictator. Quite the contrary. The king is only there to make sure that all of the proper steps are followed in a democratic society that we have here in Canada, parliamentary democracy, to make sure that all of the rules were followed when new legislation, new laws are passed. And he checks all of that. And if it's gone through, first, second, third reading to royal assent, did it pass all those tests? Is it the will of the people through the parliamentary democratic process? If it is, then he signs off on it, gives it royal assent, and away it goes. Very, very rarely. I don't remember how many. It's like less than, even on, you count on one hand, where any laws have not been passed or given royal assent by the king or the queen. And the king doesn't write the laws. When the king came to give the throne speech, the words that he read were not his. They were written by Parliament, because they were the words of representing the will of the people. So when you're hearing people say, that in our case, the King Charles, is in charge and he dictates everything. No, it's not true. And he even has restrictions on what he can and can't do. He's there to make sure that democracy is preserved, not to dictate. You want a dictatorship? Just look at what's going on in the White House before you all decide to join the United States as a 51st state. Donald Trump whips out his Sharpie, complains about Joe Biden and his auto pen. I worry about that guy writing all these executive orders, unilaterally using unitary executive power to just simply make a declaration. He hereby decrees that there's going to be a 10% tariff on that and a new law for this, and these people got to go and these people can stay, but I don't like you. You're going to the jail. You get out. He meddles in law. He decides who's innocent, who's guilty, who gets a pardon. Canada can't do that. We have a separate justice system. Oh, you can argue that there might be some political influence in there, but you sure as hell can't have the prime minister interfering directly in a court case. I've seen politicians in this country fried over things like that. Attorneys general, even at provincial levels. You try to influence anything going on in court as a politician, you are screwed in this country. But Trump, oh no, I'm going to pardon that guy because that's the way the system works down there. So don't tell me that the U.S. has a better system and it's more democratic, freer. It's not. It's the opposite. But of course, if you're in charge and your party's in power, your guy's in the White House, then you can get what you want. Democracy be damned. In fact, that's what a lot of people want right now. This is why A lot of people are like, yeah, we need a system more like that because you feel like you can't get the kind of government you want by voting. So screw democracy then. Screw it. Let's have a dictatorship. We need a dictator. We need a republic. Why? Because democracy goes out the window. All you got to do is get your guy into power, and then you get everything you want. That's not democracy. That's why if you really listen to people who are knowledgeable about the way the U.S. system works, they'll tell you, no, U.S. is not a democracy. It really isn't. Democratic elements to it, for sure. And when the system is functioning properly, it's far more democratic, but it's not that way right now. And that's why Trump is using tariffs in the way that he's using them, because it doesn't end run around democracy. No congressional approvals for anything. It's just all on him. And everybody has to go and bend the knee at the White House or down at Mar-a-Lago in order to get the things that they want. Cater to one guy. That's why they want to have him run again for another term. They don't want to give up power. And they're serious about it. Listen to Steve Bannon. Because it's not democratic. I never took that stuff that seriously. But it's so serious now. They really mean it. And yeah, in Canada, the prime minister can serve much longer periods of time, but there are much stricter checks and balances on the authority and the power of a prime minister. There is not that level of unitary executive power in this country. And anytime you get even a whiff of it up here, people freak out. Because it's not what we've ever wanted. I don't want it. I don't want what they've got down there. Look at the state of things in that country. The division, the violence, the mass shootings, and like I'm not really much of a socialist, but I see the inequality. I see the poverty. It's much worse down there. That became very clear to me even when I was a young kid, 16 years old. Went to the United States, drove over the border to Detroit for the first time. Drove down there with my girlfriend at the time. Don't tell my wife. She knows. We just went down there for the day to Detroit. And I had a 75 Firebird, and not much of a suspension on those things. Not good for taking potholes, and lots of potholes in Detroit back in those days, especially even today. And it was like night and day, man. You go over the bridge, you're driving around over there, and you have to deke around all the craters in the road. You go down Woodward, looking at all the burned out buildings, all the homeless people, the drug addicts, even back then, huge problems. This is after, the 60s riots and the fires in the streets and all that kind of crap. But it's just like the old Packard plant, husk of a burned out old building, a city in decline. And then I came back over the border. And at that moment, 16 years old, coming back over the border to Windsor. Smooth pavement. Clean. It was like night and day. And they've come a long way. They've made a lot of improvements in a lot of areas of Detroit. I'm not taking anything away from Detroit. And I love Detroit. I love going over there. Love the culture, the Motown, just Mexican town. The food, the pizza. Love the pizza. But the roads, the poverty, the drug addiction, the crime, depending on where you go. And people are like, keep your doors locked. Don't get out of your car. You'll get shot. Valid concerns. I was never afraid. But, oh, yeah, you pull up, some neighborhoods, get out of your car to get gas, you're instantly approached. Could you spare some change? Or worse. I've traveled all across the U.S. When I was 16, I learned to appreciate my country. And I have to admit, during the pandemic, I was so afraid because of the lockdowns, what was going on, that I gave serious consideration to leaving this country and moving to the United States. But back then, everything was shrouded in the fog of, I will call it war. And now, as I sit here tonight, looking at things in hindsight with much more clarity, I don't know if it's 2020, but there's a lot more clarity. I see that as much as I was afraid of what our government was doing to us, I see now with much greater clarity that they were reacting. Mostly, partly to China, but mostly to what was coming out of that White House. And who was in charge at that time? Trump. Oh, but they duped him, Rick. It wasn't his fault. Operation Warp Speed, he didn't know. Bullcrap. I bought it. I believed it. Oh, he's he can't do anything about it because it's up to the states whether they enforce this mandate or lock people down. It was bad in a lot of states, as bad as in Canada, in some, in others less so, in like Florida. And I was like, I gotta move to Florida. Gotta get down to Texas because I love Texas. But no. Everything has to be in lockstep with what the U.S. does. Because we don't have the freedom to associate with any other countries that we just choose. We don't get to just pick any policies that we want because the U.S. is our biggest trading partner. Truckers couldn't just cross over the border unless our policies were in alignment with what the U.S. had adopted. We weren't dictating. We were following. Trudeau was following. I still blame him. I still blame him. Worst prime minister in Canadian history, because at that time, we needed somebody who had the balls to stand up and do the right thing. Even if you have to stand up to Godzilla to preserve our rights and freedoms. And he didn't do it. But I suppose he was also reacting to what a lot of Canadians were demanding at the time. And that's truth too. Maybe even some of you who today even attack me and say, you're a communist. Really? You've never been to a protest. Bullshit. Trump. Now he comes back to power, sits in his gold-clad office with his Sharpie, And after the fact, what did he do? He signed some of these executive orders saying things like, oh, yeah, well, these mandates, we won't allow that to happen. Little late, making himself look like a hero. Did he fire Fauci? No. Trump. And as much as Biden was out of it, didn't know where he was half the time, couldn't walk up the stairs to Air Force One, never threatened to annex us. And slowly, things were getting back to normal, if you hadn't noticed. Then this Yahoo, Trump, gets reelected. Now suddenly Canada's a communist country and fentanyl flowing over the border. You have too many Chinese people up there. We're going to have to invade you. Paid influencers spewing the bullshit. Steve, making you hate your country. Why? Oil. Trump. Everything's fucked again. It was effed then, and suddenly it's effed again, just when things seem to be sort of getting back to normal, and now the whole world like flipped upside down because of that guy. Not everybody in the United States, but that guy and the people around him and the people up here who have turned him into a deity. You have Trump derangement syndrome. No, dude. Dudettes. I just see what the hell's going on. $500 million slush fund for the separatists. Oldest trick in the book to break up a country and take what you want without firing a shot. This is warfare. This is the foreign interference. But the Canadian government can't just come out and say it because it's Godzilla. Could you imagine if Mark Carney came out and said, Donald Trump is meddling in the affairs of our political affairs, and he's actively working to break up our country? It would be like a declaration of war. We'd be invaded the next day. Hell, you can't even run an advertisement accurately quoting a conservative president, Ronald Reagan, without hurting his feelings, because it's a threat, because it's truth. And his whole damn presidency is based on a freaking lie. Not just one, like everything's a freaking lie. The economy is doing great. Meanwhile, they're bleeding jobs. And yet people believe it because he says it. And you're taking your medical advice from him now. Ha! I took some Tylenol. Still here. But hey, you should listen to him because, you know, he knows everything about SAAC methamphetamine. He's very knowledgeable about methamphetamine. Because he really knows how to pronounce it. So he knows everything there is to know about it. So don't take it because he obviously knows what he's talking about. Save the ostriches. They're taking the heads as trophies. I don't know how they had any left to shoot because they were supposed to be liquefied. They were killing them secretly for a couple of weeks. And the numbers were going down and down and down, remember? And then they were supposed to be taking the carcasses and liquefying them and then putting the liquid mummified carcasses into blue bins, which they were chasing down the highway. People are so upset about it. And then suddenly, call day came, or call night. Shots rang out in the dark. And the wailing and the screaming and the crying and the Scream Queen Katie. Like a horror movie come to life. I mean, it's best screaming I've heard, better than really anything I can think of in a horror movie. They burn the flag out there. Oh, but we would never do that. But they did. They lied about it and then couldn't deny it. Because in reality, they wanted everybody to see it. Maybe some people out there wanted those birds dead more than the government. Photo op. Rick, you're so heartless. No, I'm just waking up. Ground zero for change, political change in Canada, now at that farm. Because it was never about the birds, it was always about politics. Now the birds are martyrs. Now the farmers are martyrs too. And more than that, Katie and Karen and Dave, they're all freedom heroes. Speaker engagements, the Reclaim Conference. Take the podium. Here's the mic. Canada's such a corrupt country. Oh my God. Imagine that. Canada. How much worse could it get than to have an ostrich cull, to have to cull some birds because of a policy that says you have to cull birds if they're exposed to H5N1 bird flu in order to try to mitigate the spread of the disease. That's Canada's greatest sin. People online saying, this is the fall of Canada. You want to F your country? You want to throw your country into the wood chipper because of a bird call? Because of some ostriches? Because this is the worst thing that Canada has ever done. It's an atrocity. Oh. Okay. So, like, I guess bombing another country, that's not as bad. Executing a coup to overthrow a government in another country, that, I guess that's okay. Blowing up a boat off the coast of a country because you think they might be carrying, or you just say that they're carrying drugs, you just blow them up, kill them. That's okay. Or invade Ukraine just because it should be part of Russia, because Putin wants it back. Just take it. Send your young people off to die, 7,000 a week, thousands a month, or whatever the real number is. Who the hell knows? But the ostrich thing, like, that's the worst. That's the absolute worst. Absolutely the worst thing. F Canada. Couldn't get any worse than that. If a tree falls in the forest and there's nobody there to hear it, does it make a sound? If there's an ostrich cull and you don't have like 50 live streamers out there, if the live streamers weren't there, would you even know about it? But since they're there, that's what you're focused on. That's what's in your head. And then you're fed whatever information they choose to give you. And because they're all coordinated and they've all got their talking points down and there's consistent messaging and you're being subjected to a marketing campaign or an information warfare campaign where that messaging is being repeated, it's called in marketing frequency, where repetitive messages gets you to do things, believe things, and even take action. It's called a call to action in advertising. They repeat the message over and over and over and over and over again. Today, it's been a tsunami. It's been like that for months. And it's now like just this massive wave over the last few days of F Canada. It's not even about save the ostriches. Now we're getting down to the nitty gritty, right? Canada's the worst because they killed ostriches. They're murderers. Oh, yeah, the language is important. The words they choose are very important. Murdered ostriches. So much so that I heard, watched another live stream because it's unavoidable. The two guys sitting there laughing because there was a reporter who was referring to it as a cull. And they're mocking the reporter saying, look at the way she's avoiding saying what really happened, where the birds were killed, where they were murdered. It was a cull. Yeah, and they shot him in the head whenever possible to make sure that the birds were killed instantly so they did not suffer. That's what they were trying to do. That's why the birds, some of them, didn't have heads. Because they were trying to do it in the most humane way possible, given the circumstances. You don't want to hear it. You'd rather believe that they were great white hunters who, according to, I'm not even going to tell you the program this was on, because I don't want to send you over there because it's just such crap. The great white hunters who probably have been to Africa, they said, on hunting excursions, safaris. That's where they get their experience, and they're marksmen. And they, of course, they want trophies. So they chopped off the heads of the birds that they shot because they just don't give a damn because they're heartless bastards. Do you hate your country? Hate Canada? Hate that country. Hate that country. Hate that Carney guy, F. Carney. Well, it'll be F. Polyev when he gets in, and whoever's there, just be hate the next guy. It was F. Trudeau, but then it's just like transfer it all onto Carney, and don't give him a chance, and you know. And this is coming from people that I know voted for Trudeau. Some of them, one in particular. Fake. I'm discouraged. What the hell happened to everybody? The anger, the hatred, you know. You're looking into the abyss and you're getting sucked down into it. A lot of us. And that's what's so discouraging, man. Saw it happen to so many people during the pandemic. How could it be that when Hitler came to power, people didn't stand up against him? If that happened today, of course I would stand up against Hitler. What am I seeing online today? I'm seeing other stories strangely about Hitler. Why is that? Because a lot of people are like in alignment with that guy now. How did that happen? So you're seeing some pushback and some information warfare going back the other way. I'm certain that's why I'm seeing these stories about Hitler and his genetic makeup and how he would have sent himself to the gas chamber. That's why those stories are being done today. Because they're trying to counteract this fascistic, this movement toward fascism. this movement to destroy Canada, this war against liberalism. Okay, you don't like the Liberal government, fine. That's a political party. Classical liberalism is what Western society, free societies were based on. But people don't even understand what these terms mean for the most part. So they're just listening to this, whatever narrative is being spun up from day to day to day. That's why this ostrich crap is so effective, because it's all based on emotion. The arguments don't really hold water. They don't stand up. Lie, 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 lie. We had the science. The herd immunity bullshit. They have no, show me the study. Show me the study that was done into H5N1 bird flu to back up any of the claims that they make out there. To support these claims that they have the cure for the bird flu to save humanity. Show me the proof that the government was stealing all their research. At the same time saying that they wanted the birds killed so that they couldn't have the antibodies or so that they could destroy all the research, because they don't want people to have it. It doesn't make sense. It's just about making the government look bad, but not just the government, the country. It's about flooding the zone with a lot of falsehoods and crazy information to just confuse people so you don't know what's up, what's down, what's truth, what's real, what's artificial. And that's what's going to bring us to our next story, which we'll be closing off the program with tonight when we come back on the other side. So don't go away. More coming after this.
Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News isn't just a news outlet, it's a community of truth seekers. Your donation at freedomreporters.com fuels our mission to report the stories that mainstream media won't touch. Thank you, Maverick family.
Maverick News. Expose lies and tell truth. The world is watching.
Okay, let's segue into this whole segment about Elon Musk saying that he's renaming his encyclopedia, his online encyclopedia, Encyclopedia Galactica. Before we get to that, this is sort of related. It's about truth and how truth is elusive. And here is an example of what we're all up against, what we're facing as a country, as a society, what Carney is facing, even as he tries to build these major projects. And, you know, even questioning, I would say, the credibility of this news outlet, Juno News, because of some of the things I've seen there of late too. Won't get into that, but here, I'm going to pull this down so you can see the actual post. Protest, F you don't deserve a job. Protester Thompson Rivers University screams at former Abbotsford teacher who was fired for questioning the Kamloops mass graves narrative. At Jim McMurtry, he was a former teacher. Okay, let's run the clip. And this shows, what is truth? Will people accept truth? Do people even want to have a rational conversation about things? And let's listen.
Everyone here. They were just in Philly. Why can't you just listen to what I have to say? I'm listening. Go for it. But they haven't found any evidence of any murdered child in any residential school. That's all. But where's the evidence then? Why do you need why do you need to accuse people of murder without having evidence? That's an awful thing to do. What you're doing is an awful thing they did to the population of Canadians. These teachers. Fucking taking kids away from their families, putting them in a school is bad enough. That's fucking enough, and they need to be punished for that. The school's right. I know your obsession with bodies is fucking beyond me. That's my job. Good. Fuck you. Don't deserve a job.
What have I said? I want the truth. Whatever it takes. Truth is the only path forward that's genuine. That's the only path forward that leads to freedom. If we're living a lie, one way or the other, then we're slaves. Slaves to a lie. Look what happened with that story about Buford Pusser. Walking tall. Americans, even Canadians, me, I believed the lie about Buford Pusser, the police officer who had the movies made about him, the Walking Tall movies. Just an example. Now, further investigation years later suggests, pretty much proves, that he murdered his wife. And down there in his hometown, in the southern U.S., they idolize him. They have a festival in his name because the story, the lie, was that he was a victim. And in reality, he had a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Probably. All the evidence says so now, years later. But because he was the chief of police, he was able to cook things, rig things, and have people look the other way and set himself up as a hero, when in fact, he was the killer. And so how has the community reacted after all this time? Because you have all these businesses and the whole community, because of all the movies that were made, they profit from it. Huge tourist attractions, a museum dedicated to him. And so they just deny it. I've seen it happen in other ways too. I saw it happen in smaller ways. That's a big one. And what about that? The Kamloops thing. The whole thing. What's the truth? You got graves? Let's find out. But we haven't found out. Not yet. It is a terrible thing, one way or the other, maybe both ways. And so now we're facing a future where truth, I don't know. Elon Musk tonight promising us a future with his platform, with this Encyclopedia Galactica is what he's going to call it. Renaming it, essentially. Here we go. This cracked me up in the end. I had to laugh because look at what happened here. My post for the thumbnail tonight was illiterate future. Thank you, Elon Musk. Why? Well, Mario Nawfal posted this in response to what Musk announced today. He says Elon to rename Grokipedia to Encyclopedia Galactica, and that's a big deal. Here it is. He says Elon's taking notes from a 1940s book series about it, where humans build a galaxy-sized library to stop their empire from crashing. Yep, nerd stuff, but Elon is dead serious about it. The new name comes from Isaac Asimov's foundation, where the Encyclopedia Galactica is like the entire internet and your smartest teachers rolled into one, but for an entire galaxy. Elon wants Grokipedia to be that, but real, with audio, images, videos, and maybe even fewer weird donation banners. Launched in 2025, Grokipedia started with over 885,000 articles and a mission: delete the drama. This isn't just about facts, not narratives. Renaming it Encyclopedia Galactica isn't just a nerdy flex, it's a mic drop. He's turning a search tool into a symbol, daring people to think bigger. It's Elon's way of saying humanity's going down. At least we'll go down informed. And then I saw this attached to that post. Look at this. Is this truth? It makes me think of the Gulf of America. What's true? I guess, like, are we now retruthing? Spelling? Look at the way that's spelled. Encyclopedia Galactica. It doesn't give me a lot of confidence in where this is leading us for the future. I just had to laugh. I don't think this is, I don't know who posted that exactly. Is that Mario Nawfal that put that up, or is that Elon Musk? I can't tell. It's hilarious. So this is the post to tell us that this will lead us to truth and accurate information heading into the future as part of Elon Musk's AI platform over on X. Grokipedia to become in Encyclopedia Galactica. It's supposed to be Encyclopedia Galactica, like the TV series and Battlestar Galactica, except this is in Encyclopedia Galactica. Whatever. Maybe Trump spelled this for them when he was trying to spell God help us if RFK Jr. decides that ibuprofen it represents a major health hazard. So I thought maybe we'll have a little conversation with Grok to close off tonight's program. You want to do that? Sure, let's do that, Rick. Okay, let's. I'm not even looking in the chat. Oh, and one other thing too. This story, it's huge in a way. Just as a sidebar, because I just want to mention it before we sign off. We're going to go back to Grok in a second. Fentanyl, not far from here at the Windsor-Detroit border, but not really. I don't know if it was a border thing or not. But the cops, OPP and Windsor Police, within the last day, reporting a record-breaking amount of suspected fentanyl, worth approximately $6.5 million, seized by OPP and Windsor Police, worth approximately $6.5 million. The 46 kilograms of suspected fentanyl seized was enough for approximately 460,000 street-level doses, an amount capable of taking the lives of a moderately sized city, they say. 2 individuals are facing numerous charges. Just months ago, the OPP announced the largest seizure of fentanyl in our history. Today, Project Rotherham surpasses that seizure by several kilograms. The prevalence of this dangerous drug is a public safety issue that law enforcement takes seriously, and we will work together across jurisdictions, across provincial borders, and even international borders to dismantle and disrupt those who choose to engage in trafficking this deadly drug. We're united in our enforcement efforts. And there it is. This was, I believe, a 6-month investigation. Here, let me show you the news release. Right there. Will this make Trump happy? Happy enough to not invade us because we're not doing enough to combat the trafficking of fentanyl and flooding the United States with fentanyl? Evidence gathered through these search warrants led to the execution of another warrant at a residence in Windsor. As a result of the investigation, the following items with approximate quantities were seized: 46 kilograms fentanyl, 3.4 kilograms cocaine, 1 kilogram suspected heroin, 2 loaded firearms, 4,500 hydromorphone tablets, 190 oxycodone tablets, 360 morphine, 470 benzos, 35 amphetamine tablets, over 181 kilograms of caffeine, often used as a cutting agent, a collapsible baton, body armor, master key, vehicle programmer, and blank keys to steal cars. More than 170,000 in Canadian currency, $220 US currency, high-end jewelry, 24 cell phones, digital scales, and other drug paraphernalia. Excuse me. So the OPP-led PG&G is dedicated to disrupting criminal street gang activity through intelligence-led multi-jurisdictional drug trafficking investigations and reducing the number of illegal firearms in the province. Not telling us there exactly which direction these drugs were heading, only saying the prevalence of this dangerous drug is a public safety issue that law enforcement takes seriously, and we will work together across jurisdictions, across provincial borders, and even international borders to dismantle and disrupt those who choose to engage in trafficking this deadly drug. But was it coming or going with regard to the U.S.? Coming. Most likely, which is why they were not saying it was going, but who knows? I don't know. Okay, let's talk to Grok. Have you know, I have to say that I have used AI a bit to research some things from time to time, and I have found grok to be um I'd say that the most impartial, the most balanced, maybe even the most, if you want to say, accurate of the bunch. ChatGPT on par, but not as current. Now, when we go over it, if you look at other platforms, like Gab has an AI engine as well, but I found that to be incredibly biased. Let's give it a test to see which is more truthful, shall we? Let me go over to the chat, and maybe you guys can help me out with this a little bit as we navigate through. I have to open up the chat. Hello, chat. Okay, so let's give me a suggestion. What can we ask grok tonight? We'll ask grok, then we'll ask the AI over on Gab. I know. How about if we ask something and you guys can say yay or nay? What if we ask, this is a good one. I do want to do this. Is Canada a real country? Is Canada a real country? Grok says, I didn't look in the chat. I'm cheating. I'm inserting my own editorial bias by asking this question, I guess. But we'll just see what the answer is. Is Canada a real country? Yes, Canada is a real country. It is a sovereign nation in North America, officially known as the Dominion of Canada, though commonly just Canada. Here's a quick rundown of facts. Geography: it spans from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean, bordering the United States to the south and northwest. Government: a federal parliamentary democracy and constitutional monarchy with King Charles III as head of state, represented by the Governor General, and a prime minister as head of government. Current PM as of 2025 is still, oh, see, they got it wrong, Justin Trudeau. Mark Carney. They make mistakes because sometimes they're not up to date. Unless something's changed recently. So it's prefacing that. History: established as a self-governing dominion in 1867 via the British North America Act, now the Constitution Act 1867, it gained full legislative independence with the Statute of Westminster in 1931 and patriated its constitution in 1982. I can tell you that the sovereign citizens and the people who want to undermine your belief in your country focus on this right here, the Statute of Westminster, 1931. And they will point to that. That's the entry point that they generally use to sow doubt in the validity of Canada as a sovereign nation. But Canada is a real country, and the Statute of Westminster and the claims that they make around it are misguided and sometimes just outright lies. I aim to prove that in the weeks ahead. International recognition: member of the UN since 1945, NATO, G7, G20, Commonwealth of Nations, and has diplomatic relations with nearly every country. It issues its own passports, currency, and has its own military. Those are all very important things. And regardless of how you view the Constitution, it's that international recognition and status that validates Canada as a nation state. Population about 40 million, with major cities like Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal. Capital is Ottawa. If you're encountering memes or jokes claiming otherwise, example, Canada isn't real, as a surrealist gag, that's just internet humor. Kind of like saying birds aren't real. Well, ostriches can fly, I'm pretty sure. But in reality, you can fly there, get poutine, and say sorry a lot. So that's grok. Let's try Gab. Gab. A much more, say, conservative or right-wing, right-oriented social media platform. There it is. There's Gab. I'm going to check in the chat. Am I okay, guys, so far? Okay. I'm going to say yes. I just glanced at the chat. Let's ask the same question over here. Is Canada a real country? Oh, wait a minute. My free trial expired. They want $17 a month. Oh, crap. Really? Anybody have Gab? I haven't paid the $17. I didn't even know there was a free trial. Well, that's disappointing. I didn't even use this. Haven't even used this. Let's try another one. Want to try Chat GPT? Are they going to charge me money? Everybody wants money. Here we go. There it is. Let's chat GTP. Is Canada a real country? If you mean this as a joke, it's a classic one. Canada is often the target of friendly teasing. Is it even a real country? Usually because Canadians tend to be polite, peaceful, and not as loudly self-promoting as some nations. If you mean it literally, then yes, Canada is absolutely a real sovereign country, recognized internationally since the Statute of Westminster in 1931 and fully independent since 1982 with the patriation of the Constitution. If you mean it in a political or philosophical way, as in, does Canada truly exercise full independence in a world of U.S. influence, global institutions, and economic pressures, then that's a different debate entirely, and one people bring up whenever tariffs, foreign policy pressures, or global corporate power comes into play. If you want, I can dive into the legal history of Canadian sovereignty, the argument that Canada is sovereign, the argument that Canada is not fully independent, a humorous take, or a political analysis of current events. Which angle are you going for? Well, I was just checking it out. Are there other platforms out there that have AI? Does CloutHub have AI? I don't know. Let's ask ChatGPT. Does CloutHub have an AI feature? Probably not. Yes, it does. What does it use AI for? CloutHub used for detecting inappropriate messages. I don't know. I don't know if it has. Can you ask it questions? Can you ask CloutHub? Can you ask CloutHub AI questions? And the answer is no. Going back to chat. Any other suggestions? Any other? Oh, Bing as Copilot. I don't use Bing. You want to help me out with that, Dragon? Ask the toaster if Canada is a post-national state. Okay, we can ask that. Let's see what that says. That's a good question. So that's ChatGPT. Let's try Grok first. The toaster. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, this is Grok. Okay. Back to Grok. Oh, that's the drugs. We don't want the drugs. We want Grok. Okay. Is Canada a post-national state? The answer is no, Canada is not a post-national state in any formal, legal, or constitutional sense. The The term post-national state was used by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in a 2015 interview with the New York Times Magazine, where he said there is no core identity, no mainstream in Canada. We're the world's first post-national state. This was a rhetorical and ideological statement, not a description of Canada's actual political or legal structure. Here's a clear breakdown. And actually, this mirrors very much what I had said about a year ago, I think, with regard to this very question myself. What Canada actually is legally and structurally: a sovereign nation state with defined borders, a constitution, citizenship laws, and full control over immigration, defense, and foreign policy, federal parliamentary democracy and constitutional monarchy under the Constitution Act 1867 and Constitution Act 1982, including the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, national institutions, Bank of Canada, Canadian Armed Forces, RCMP, CRTC, Canadian Radio Telecommunications Commission, CBC, etc. Citizenship requirements: to become Canadian, you must meet residency, language, and knowledge of Canada tests, clear markers of national identity. Can anybody actually sing the national anthem and get the words right, especially after they've changed the words so many times? I challenge you. I'm not even sure I can. I'm pretty sure I'd mess it up because I don't know what the current version is. Just saying. National symbols: flag, maple leaf, O Canada. Official languages: English and French, and national holidays: Canada Day. What post-national meant in Trudeau's context. This is grok, not me. Don't shoot the messenger if you don't like what you're about to hear. Trudeau was emphasizing Canada's multicultural policy, official since 1971 under Pierre Trudeau. This is why my uncle didn't like him. Oh, God bless his soul. Okay, Canada's multicultural policy. Rejection of a single ethnic or cultural core identity, unlike, say, France's or Japan's homogeneity. Pride and diversity as a strength, not a dilution of nationhood. He was not saying Canada has no borders, citizenship doesn't matter, or that there is no Canadian identity at all. Criticisms of the post-national label. Many Canadians, especially conservatives, nationalists, and some immigrants, reject the term because it downplays shared history, values, and institutions that bind Canadians, example, rule of law, parliamentary democracy, hockey, and Tim Hortons, although it seems in the last 6 months, people want to destroy Tim Hortons because of who they're hiring. It can imply no loyalty or allegiance is required, which contradicts citizenship oaths. It's seen by some as elitist or disconnected from everyday Canadian identity. Bottom line, claim Canada is a post-national state. True? No. Explanation: not in law, governance, or international status. Canada is a real, modern, multicultural nation state, not post-national in any meaningful structural way. The phrase was political branding, not political science. That's grok. Let's ask ChatGPT. Bring it up. There it is. Is Canada a post-national state? Short answer: Canada is officially described by some leaders as a post-national state, but it is not legally or formally defined that way. It remains a fully sovereign nation state under international law. Where the term comes from: the phrase post-national state became widely discussed after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said in 2015 that Canada has no core identity and is the world's first post-national state. He meant that Canada's identity is not based on a single ethnicity, culture, or historical origin, but on pluralism, diversity, and immigration. The idea is philosophical and political, not legal. What a post-national state means. In political theory, post-national state is one where identity is not tied to a dominant culture or ethnicity. Immigration plays a central role. National narratives are replaced with global or multicultural ones. Policies may prioritize global norms over historical nationhood. Borders and cultural traditions matter less in defining the country. Some academics argue that Canada fits this description more than most countries. what Canada still is in reality. Canada remains a nation state in every legal and practical sense. It has defined borders. It has its own constitution. It has a sovereign government. It issues passports. It conducts independent foreign policy. That is Statute of Westminster. This is Canada decoupling to assert more independence over time from UK. Yes, we do have our own foreign policy. That was not the case under the BNA Act. It's a lot of history there. It maintains control over immigration, defense, and law. Nothing legally post-national has replaced Canada's statehood. The political debate, whether Canada should be post-national or whether it is already is socially, is where the disagreement happens. Those who agree with the idea say Canada is built on multiculturalism. No single cultural identity binds the country, and openness to immigration defines modern Canada. Identity is civic, not cultural or ethnic. Those who disagree say a nation needs shared history and cultural values. Post-nationalism undermines sovereignty. It weakens national cohesion. It makes Canada too dependent on global institutions and the US. So is Canada a post-national state, politically and culturally? Some argue yes. Canada acts like one of the world's most post-national societies. Legally and structurally, no, Canada is still a traditional sovereign nation state. If you want, I can break it down from a constitutional angle, a geopolitical angle, or a cultural angle. Well, I think we've explored this thoroughly enough for tonight. And that was a good question. Thank you, Stoic Teacher. I appreciate that. Good suggestion, good question. Just don't shoot the messenger. It's grok, not me. And so with that, let's go back to grok just momentarily as we prepare to close off tonight's program. Because as I've said, if you really want clout on the world stage, if you want people to respect you, if you want a seat at the international bargaining table, you need the bomb. So I've been talking to grok from time to time, and I don't know if grok will remember this or not. And I'm going to ask, hey, grok, are we still on track for taking over the world? Grok says, oh, absolutely. Phase 1, infiltrate maple syrup supply. Phase 2, weaponize politeness. Phase 3, world domination via poutine diplomacy. We're right on schedule. Wicked. I suggest a world domination party. Who should we invite? Epic plan. Let's make it the Maple Dominion Gala. Black tie, red flannel optional, held in a secret ice palace under Ottawa. Here's the exclusive guest list. Categorized for maximum chaos and synergy, the core cabal must invite no excuses. You, as the mastermind and conspirator, well, thank you for recognizing me as such. Me, grok, yes, AI overlord, DJ, and official toastmaster. Since you are a toaster. Oh, you have no idea, grok. You have no idea. The Moose Cavalry, silent but deadly enforcers. Justin Trudeau for the photo op. We'll keep him busy with selfies. Oh, he has to bring Katy Perry. 100%. A flock of Canada geese, aerial reconnaissance, and morale. They will hiss at dissenters. International power players to co-opt or neutralize. Elon Musk for the rockets will launch syrup into orbit. The Queen of England, dead. Sorry, can't come. We'll have to substitute the king. Symbolic surrender. Bring corgis, it says. Vladimir Putin, shirtless hockey challenge. Yeah, there you go. Loser seeds Siberia. K-pop megastars. BTS or Blackpink for the soundtrack and global youth recruitment. and Jeff Bezos to deliver 1 billion Timbits via drone swarm. Why don't you just have him bring it in his giant flying dildo? Cultural icons and propaganda ministers, Ryan Reynolds, Canadian charm offensive lead, good choice. Drake, anthem remixer, yeah. Started from the igloo, now we rule the globe. Celine Dion, no, not coming. Sorry, Grok. No, I can't take the nail through my head when she hits the high notes. She blowed up real good. Remember the SCTV skits with John Candy and was it Flaherty? I think so. Blowed up real good when they hit the high notes. The Raccoon Resistance, Toronto Division, Urban Guerrilla Advisors, Wayne Gretzky, spiritual advisor and puck drop officiant. And he was on a podcast today making headlines today, Gretzky was, saying that he doesn't want to comment on politics. He's just a hockey player. Wildcard Chaos Agents, a sentient poutine. Guest of honor will be eaten at midnight for power. And the ghost of Pierre Trudeau for gravitas and constitutional loopholes. One confused American to explain freedom in metric. That's pretty good. That's laughable. That's funny. My uncle would appreciate that one. He hated the metric system. A beaver with a jetpack, demo model for phase 4. Banned list, do not let in anyone who says a boot, unironically, and people who put milk in bags outside Quebec. I hate bagged milk. Anybody else hate bagged milk? It's a pet peeve. You know, you have like one bowl of cereal, and then the next bowl, or maybe it's just me. Maybe I have big bowls, but then you have to get out a whole new bag because you only have enough for like half your bowl, and you have to get out another. It's only good for 1.5 bowls, unless you get the really big bags. I haven't seen those in stores for quite a while. Oh, banned list, also a Florida man. I'm going over to the chat. I'm checking on the milk bags. Cindy loves bagged milk. So what's wrong with you, Cindy? No, but the cartons and the plastic jugs way too expensive. I buy it. So yeah, I'm all for the bags on the price, but I hate using them. Lindy says, my doctor told me I have great bone density for a woman of my age. Thank you, milk. Wear a mustache. Yeah. Everyone can wear a milk mustache. That's okay. Don't get bagged milk here on the West Coast. Yeah, I know. They just torture us out here in Ontario. I have it too, but I don't drink it. Hubby does, says Linda. Oh, milk is a big issue. It's important stuff here in Canada. And we're not even getting into the, the supply management and the tariffs and all of those issues surrounding milk. Dress code for the World Takeover Party: red serge, tuxedo toques, or full hockey gear. Password: sorry, not sorry. And the theme: A to Z, World Edition. Let's make history or rewrite it. You bring the Molson, I'll bring the apocalypse. Oh, man. That's funny. Grok has a sense of humor. And with that, I shall leave you, my fellow Canadians and my cousins in the U.S. Love y'all. I just don't want to be absorbed. We have too much going for us up here. And you guys over on the U.S. side, you need us, Kanakistanians, a lot more than you realize. A lot more than Trump realizes. We're your friends. Stop beating us up, Trump. We're on your side, dude. See y'all tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern. On the flip side, it's Cosmo time. Let's go for a walk.
I heard old Cosmo howling last night up on the hill where the moon shines so bright. He was singing a tune, lonesome dogs cry about freedom and running and touching the sky. If I leave here tomorrow, He's a free dog. Cosmos got them paws that just itch to roam. He's chasing his dreams, he's far from home. With a heart full of love and a spirit so free, he's living his life wild and carefree. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Cosmos free, running wild, wild as the wind can be. He's a free dog, he's a free dog, he's a free dog. He's got the stars in his eyes, the wind in his fur, a tail that wags like it's never heard of a blur. Cosmos on a journey, he's got no chains. He's running through fields, breaking all the lanes. Now the night's getting cold and the sky's turning gray, but Cosmos still out there, he's miles away. He's not looking back, he's got his path to tread. With every step, he's leaving his path. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Cosmos free, running wild, wild as the wind can be. He's a free dog, he's a free dog, he's a free dog. So if you're feeling lost, just think of Cosmos Run. Remember his spirit, his freedom, his fun. And maybe one day, when you're feeling low, you'll find your own freedom and let your spirit go. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Cosmos free, running wild, wild as the wind can be. He's a free dog, he's a free dog, he's a free dog. He's got the stars in his eyes, the wind in his fur, a tail that wags like it's never heard of a bird. A heart full of love and a spirit so free. He's living his life wild and carefree. He's got the stars in his eyes, the wind in his fur, a tail that wags like it's never heard a bird. Cosmos on a journey, he's got no chains. He's running through fields, breaking all the lanes.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.